We're on 96, right? 96 on the very bottom. 96A on the bottom. Oy Rami Barchama. We thank Hashem that they're able to learn Torah every day. In the Schus of learning, we should have the base of Mikdash immediately. And we're learning Luli Nishmas, the Havakol, the Baruch Binyamin, and the son was Ben Metzia, for first name of for David Ben Shai. Whoever else needs a first name. Also, you can come with Yitzi, but tomorrow night there's Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Is 6 years that we've been learning together. We like to do something. We'll do a Fabrengen or something. So stay in touch. Stay posted. Okay. Rami Barchama. By Rami Barchama. Rami Barchama asks a question. We've been learning over here all about Shila B'Bailam. Someone borrows something, and then the owner is doing work for the borrower at the time of the borrowing, and makes him exempt, makes the borrower exempt. And later on, something happens, whether it's an accident or if it got stolen, possibly even negligence, would make him exempt. So Rami Barcham has a question like this. We had another 8 questions before this. He adds in another question. A husband and his wife, a wife, she brings property into the marriage, so the husband is allowed to use that property. He considered Shayel Havi, in other words, if an accident happens, is he considered a borrower or is he considered a renter? Right? If he's a borrower, then he has to pay if it's unpreventable circumstance as well. Excuse me. If he's a renter, then he would be exempt. He's only responsible if it's stolen or lost. Amar Rava, so Rava says to Rami Barchama and Rava were a close friend. They went to yeshiva together. Learned by Rav Chizda. Rami Barchama married Rav Chizda's daughter. Passed away. Rav married the same daughter of his from the widow. Rava says, "From Chorfer Shabeshta." He's so smart that you're making mistakes. It's like you're what do they call it? Over smart or something. So, Manavshach. It says, what do you think you're asking over here? Isha Havi, you're asking if he's a borrower. So automatically, Shila B'Bailami. Okay, he borrows something from his wife, but his wife has to work for him. She serves him food, she brings him. So he's exempt. Isha Havi. Let's say, okay, so he's a renter. Right? He didn't explain why he should be considered a renter. The explanation why he should be considered a renter is because he has to redeem her if she gets taken captive. So he has obligations to her. So that would be that he's rented. Anyway, huh? Yeah, but besides for that, there's other money that he pays. Okay, so it would be so even if he's a renter, but she has to do work for him. Even if he's renting her property, but she does work for him. She serves him. She does all that all the household things. So Ella Kikami Baile the Rami Barchama had a different question. It wasn't just a question if a husband is considered a borrower or renter in his wife's property, because he would be patur anyway from all of that. If it's an accident or possibly even negligence, let's see. Ella Kikami Baile the Rami Barchama's question was the Agar Mina Para. What happened was they had a relationship beforehand. He rented from her a cow. She was a single lady, and he rented a cow from her. But the Nasri says, "Oh, you know what? Let me marry her." He marries the car rental lady. So what's the halacha now? Now that he married her, and he's still in the middle of the rental, yeah, he still has the car. The cow is being. Does it now switch to him being a shayal, or does it switch to him being a renter? Now, borrower or rent. Now you get what the Gemara just did. It's what the Gemara just is doing. It's making an arrangement here where it's not going to be she'ila b'bailam, borrowing, because it's making the borrowing or the renting take place before the marriage. And always, in order for it to be she'ila b'bailam, it needs to take place at the time simultaneously, or the borrowing needs to be afterward, right? But it can't be that the owner's doing work afterwards. That can't be. It has to be at least at the time of the borrowing. There needs to be the owner. And here, the borrowing or the renting took place before. So now the only question is, does it restart at the time of the marriage? Let's say if he's a borrower, then we'll say that it restarts, because it used to be that he was a renter, and now he gets on a new obligation now he's a borrower. So it switches over and island responsibilities now. Or no, maybe we say that he's still a renter, and he stays as a renter, nothing switches. No, his wife owns the cow, but he's allowed to use everything that she owns. No, he's allowed to use it, but it's still during the time of the renting. So, let's say he paid up, whatever he rented for a month, he owes her a certain amount of money, and they got married within that month. So it's still during the time of the renting, but at the same time, he's also a borrower now because he's married to her. So that's a good question. Hill's asking if he has to make a new acquisition. I assume that the marriage comes along with all of the what's it called? All the trimmings, the cows and cars and whatever comes along. That's Kenyan, I assume.
If he lost the cow, what do you have to pay?
So if he's a renter,
That's a borrower.
a borrower has to pay. Well, both of them have to pay if that's lost. Question of an accident, if an unpreventable circumstance.
Do they pay the spouse?
Yeah, they would have to. Yeah.
So if you lose the spouse,
Thank you.
you could extend that to the idea.
Violent. Yeah, but here we're saying that because he borrowed it beforehand, Sheila B'Violem is only at the time of borrowing, she's doing work for him. But here he had borrowed or rented it before him.
Based on the opinion that says that the owner has to pay when the borrower takes possession.
Here we're not saying that the owner's there. Here, if there is an owner there, then it's restarting. According to that one, it's restarting. Why is it restarting? Because when he acquires her, he's acquiring whatever comes along with it. That would be the new acquisition. Well, okay. So, Ella, no, the Gemara says my shna. The Gemara asks, why are you making a distinction? If when he gets married, he's considered a borrower, you're saying, okay, now everything switched. If he's a renter, then you're saying that okay, it stays the same because he was renting before. My shna, what's the difference? If he's a borrower. Now, so you're saying, okay, so it restarts. He used to be a renter, and when he rented it, his wife wasn't doing work for him. Now, she wasn't his wife yet. Now that he's a borrower, now she is. But even if he's a renter, so before he was renting it, but that was when he was single. Now it's a new type of renting, and now it restarts. The question of if he's a borrower or renter doesn't answer the question if it restarts or doesn't restart. Could be a borrower and restarts, could be a renter and it restarts. Rami Bar Chama had a different question. The Agri Parma Alma. She was a renter. She rented a cow from someone else. The husband comes along and marries her. Now he's using his wife's rented cow. We had a machlekes when a borrower rents something out, rents the item out. We had a machlekes Rabbanan and Rabbi Yossi. If a renter lends it out, that was the case. Someone rents something and then he sub lends it. Some lends it. So now the obligation of the renter is less than the new fellow that just came along that's borrowing it. So when he pays, when an unpreventable circumstance happens, according to Rabbi Yossi, the borrower pays it to the renter, and the renter tells the original owner, "I'm exempt because I'm a renter. I don't have to pay for that." So the renter ends up making money. Middle guy's exempt from paying. So he only takes the money and he doesn't pay it. That's Rabbi Yossi's view. And the Rabbanan say that no, that the original owner goes to the borrower and takes the money.
Oh, they mentioned that she's working for him, but is that a stronger case than getting married and
He's working. She's working for him. She live a So he's borrowing it, and she's working for him.
is that a stronger case than being married?
Question is, what's his rights? What's his? I know they're married, but he's now has the usage of this property. What type of obligation does he have?
You said you were discussing about the owner was today they're talking about for marriage.
Right. So the wife works for the husband.
So would him anyways he have access to this stuff because they're married?
Yeah, that's what we're saying. He has access to these because they're married. But what's his status though?
They keep bringing up that she's with him.
She works for him, and he is able to use these items. So is he considered a borrower, and it wouldn't be Sheila Babilam? Is he a renter? It's considered renting Babilam. So she's working for him. So now the question is like this. We're talking about that she had a cow that was rented. And now they're married. And Aliba de Rabbanan Dar Mishael Mishalim L'Seicher. Did I say according to Rabbi Yossi? I might have switched it. I might have said that Rabbi Yossi says that the borrower pays to the renter. That's no. According to the Rabbanan, the borrower pays to the renter. Rabbi Yossi was concerned about that. Kate said the Parasa Shel Chavera. Rabbi Yossi said it goes straight back. I made a mistake over there. Rabbi Yossi says it goes straight back. He's dropped the middle guy. And the Rabbanan say that no, you hold on to the middle guy takes the money. According to the Rabbanan that say that the husband would have to pay to the wife. So when does he have the rights to this? So that would only be from the time of marriage. Time of marriage, she's already working for him. So household work. So that he would be exempt. So there's no shaila here. The whole shaila is according to Rabbi Yossi, that Rabbi Yossi says that you drop the middle person when you have a scenario like this, when there's a renter that lends it out. According to Rabbi Yossi, the borrower, the third fellow, has to pay back to number one, not to number two. Has to pay back to the owner. So what's the halacha here? Shayel Havi, do we consider him a borrower in his wife's property? Or is he considered a renter? He's a borrower because he's allowed to use anything that she has. He doesn't have to pay for it. Or we say he's a renter because the fact is he does have to redeem her if she's taken captive and other types of things that he has to pay for. So he's a renter in the property. Amar Rava responds to Rami Brachama's question. The husband is not considered a borrower, he's not considered a renter, he's considered a purchaser. We prove this from Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina. The city of Usha was instituted. This is one of the locations of the Sanhedrin. They instituted like this: if a husband, if a wife sells the property that she brought into the marriage while they're still married and the husband's alive, and then the wife dies. So Habal Maitzimiyad Alakuchas, the first purchaser of this property is the husband, and he can go and take it out from the hands of the purchaser and say that I came first. I married her. It's considered mine. You're the second purchaser. I'm the first one. Yeah, so that means that the husband is considered a purchaser. Question is though, what's his responsibility to or this liability for these items? So the Tosfos says that he's considered a shemer chinam. He would only be responsible for Shia. Tosfos then says that if someone buys an item for 30 days and then he returns it, it's not considered a borrower. It's not considered a renter. It could be considered a renter because he paid for it, but because he didn't use the language of a renter, so he's considered just a shemer chinam, and he's only responsible for negligence.
The first one,
Rabbi Yossi Bar Hanina. That's the Rabbi Yossi. The later Rabbi Yossi. That's a Rabbi Yossi of Miraim. He was like a student of Rabbi Yochanan. The first Rabbi Yossi is a student of Rabbi Akiva. Yeah, Rabbi Yossi Chalafta. Okay. Boy Rami Bar Chama. We got another question from Rami Bar Chama. The question is like this. Let's say a woman is married and her relative passed away. And she's the inheritor, the sole inheritor. She's going to end up with the property. Now, some of that property that she just inherited is hektish, consecrated property. So she now ends up with consecrated property. Okay, no problem. Only problem is that her husband has access to that property, so it's considered like it's transferred to the husband. Now, when you take consecrated property and you transfer it out to someone else, so that's considered me'ila. That's a trespass, using consecrated property for personal use. And here it's being transferred to the husband. So the Gemara's question is like this: when a husband is using his wife's property and there happens to be hekdishim in it because she just inherited it, mimal, who's the one? Mimal, who was the one that violates? Amar Rava says, Rava's always like questioning Rami Bar Chama's question. Like, what type of question is this? Man Limal, who would you like to be violating this trespass? Limal Baal, you want the husband too? Very simple. He wants to acquire the items that are permissible for him to acquire. He doesn't want to acquire a liability. He wants to acquire things that are permissible. He doesn't want the things that are consecrated. That's just going to be a prohibition on him. So he says, okay, I'm only taking the things that are good. He can't force it on him. So Timol Ihi. So let's say that she's the one that's violating this. So it says 1 second. She probably doesn't even want the husband to use anything. It gets transferred sort of to the husband because they're married. So she definitely doesn't want what's prohibited to go to him. Doesn't even want, maybe she does. She doesn't want even what's permissible to go to him. So the Nimalu Bezdin, who set up this whole thing that the property of the wife is given over to the husband for use? It must be the Bezdin. It says 1 second. When did the rabbi say that the husband is considered like a purchaser? That's only when it's permissible. But when it's going to be prohibited, you're going to make that the husband is considered a purchaser, and therefore there should be a prohibition here. The rabbi set it up like that. That's impossible. Elama Rava says, Baal mal l'kashiyotzi. The husband would, yes, be violating it, but not automatically. Just the fact that he exists and the property is transferred to him, like all the cloud, It's weird.
You said it's so how can you? Yeah.
Personally, it's right. You can't force it on him. We're saying now that he would only violate the rule of Mila if he actually spent the money. That was not just the fact that he exists.
So is the money is hectic or
Money is
option
hektish.
that was
Well, it doesn't matter.
So does this end up that the husband and wife have the same halakhas with respect to selling property that the other owns?
The wife can't sell the husband's property.
Well,
The husband,
yeah, but what I'm saying is if a husband sells property, the wife has a lien on it to meet her ksuva.
oh, okay. Sometimes,
Okay, and so here he sells her property. It seems like the same thing.
he sells her property. That's a
Yeah.
machlokes, Rabbi Yechanan and Rish Lakish we had before. Kinyan peiros kinyan aguf. Does he have the rights to sell?
Mhm.
He can only sell the fruits because that's what he owns. Is that considered a sale? What happens if she dies? That type of thing. I think that's going to be like this Rabbi Yechanan Rish Lakish. If she sells his property, she can't sell his property. She can sell her property that he has the rights to.
Right.
So then he can extract it from the owner. That's what we explained. Yeah, from the purchaser.
Right. But if he sells property,
If he sells his own property, he has a
she
lien on it.
she has a lien on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that's the answer. It was right. Refers to property itself, nothing else. Karka itself, nothing else.
Yeah, explain what you're referring to.
Trying to understand if these rights that the Gemara is discussing here are reciprocal.
Oh, they're very different. They're very different. It's not like this automatic because we're dealing with different ownerships.
Mhm.
We have the wife selling the property that she brought into the marriage. We have the husband selling the wife's property that she brought into the marriage, versus you have the husband selling his own property. That has nothing to do with her, that other property that she brought in. So regarding her property that she brings in, she has a problem selling it, and he also has a problem selling it. Her problem selling it is that the husband's a purchaser. His problem selling it is that it's only kinyan peiros, right? But when it comes to his property that he's selling, that's just a lien. That's just theoretically there's two properties. You can get one for the ksuba and maybe the ksuba with money, or whatever. Could be you can sell that without any issue.
The Rambam, in this halakha, the Rambam refers to a document that the wife would sign to enable her husband to sell property free and clear. She waives her right, as I understood it, the Rambam was saying, she would waive her right to reclaim the property to meet her ksuva. Right?
We learned such a thing, that the husband could sell the property of her ksuba, and we said that was just to make him happy. She wasn't really agreeing to that.
Uh-huh.
Right?
I guess I was confused. Thank you.
Okay, so where are we holding over here? Okay, so Rava concludes that the husband only violates Me'ila when he spends the money. That's when, just like whenever anyone spends money that's hektish, and he spends it on chulin, goes to the snack store and buys some snacks with hektish money. So that's a trespass, and he violates the halachas of Me'ila, which means carbon, shegeg, and all of that stuff. Okay.
kind of similar to
Yeah, it's got to be redeemed in that aspect. Right? Where's the question? Let's say you have an animal that's doing work, and he starts to get you're working it so hard, it starts to get nice and thin. That's a problem. That's what people like, but not what not what farmers. What do you call people that raise animals? Huh? Breeders. That's not what the breeders of these people want. They want nice fat animals that they could sell in the market for either for work or for meat. And say, here, you worked it so hard. It's so. What's the halacha? Amalei Umar Rabbanan Rav Chilki. We're talking about does the borrower have to pay for the loss of meat that the Amalei Umar Rabbanan Rav Chilki Breder of Avia Shmei. One of the sages, his name was Rav Chilki, the son of Rav Avia. He responded to this. Michlal, does this imply you're saying that if it would die when it's working, that you would have to pay? Name what's the bit is over here? Name yeah. Lav lokma bekilta shilti. I didn't borrow it not to work it, to keep it in a cage. Canopy kilta is a canopy. I didn't borrow it to keep it in the garage. Borrowed it to work it. We know the halacha is mesa machmas malacha. If it dies while it's working, the owner's exempt. There is a strange thing over here. If it dies because of some freak accident, yeah, I don't know, it fell or something crazy, the borrower has to pay. If it dies while it's working, he's exempt. So and I guess the explanation is that if it wasn't able to work, then the owner should have understood that. So it's just like, anyway, whatever the case is over here, we're saying that if it gets weaker while it's working, he should also be exempt. What's the difference? Elama Rava says, of course he's going to be exempt if it loses weight because it's working. Even if it dies, he's exempt because when it's working. That's because the borrower says, I didn't borrow it just to keep it in my garage. There was a person that borrowed an axe from his friend Itbar and it broke. He comes to Rava. Go and bring witnesses that you used it in a regular fashion, and then you'll be exempt. But if we find out that you used it to not to chop wood, you used it for some other thing. I don't know what else they can use the axe for. But usually things break when you use them wrong. So maybe you used it wrong, you didn't use it correctly, and then you'll be chayiv. You like a sadimai. Let's say you can't find witnesses to say that he used it properly. Well, tashema. Look, let's see another case. We're turning to 97, the bottom of 96b. Tashema, come listen to Gav the Shal Nagamechavi. There was a person that borrowed an axe from his friend Vitvar and it broke. Now here, Rashi explains that it becomes obvious in a minute, but it broke and the person was negligent. That's why it broke. He used it wrong. He didn't do it properly. He didn't. They come to Rav. You have to pay him for a brand new axe. Now, the halacha of paying for something brand new only applies when someone steals something. You have to pay its original price, what it was at the time when you took it. When it comes to damages, usually you don't pay like that. Usually you take the broken pieces, you evaluate them, you see the difference between what it used to be worth and what the broken pieces are worth, and you pay the difference and you give the original owner back the broken pieces. You say, if you want, go fix it or whatever, but this is the difference in value. So here, the person is just the damager. So the Amalei Rav Kana Ravasi Rav Kana and Ravasi, they say to Rav, these are the common people that ask Rav questions, and Rav is silent. They say, Dina Hachi, is that the halacha that you have to pay the full price? Shtasik Rav was silent. Which means what is a good question. What is the comment? Did you have a comment there when Rav is silent? Can they comment on that? It's not so clear when Shasik Rav, if it means, sometimes Shasik Rav means that Rav agrees that he made a mistake. He's quiet, he doesn't have an answer. Sometimes Shasik Rav means that he's so not impressed that he doesn't even bother to answer. What does it say?
Just said
There's no comment on the side what Shasik Rav means. Okay. Okay, Bihilcha said the halacha is Karav Kanav Ravasi, that they were correct because the Mahadale Tavre that you have to give back the broken pieces, Mamalale de Meimana, and then you pay the difference between what it was worth and what the broken pieces are worth. So let's say the axe is worth $100, the broken pieces are worth 25, and so the borrower is just going to have to pay $75 and back the broken pieces. There was a person to show Davla Mechavri, borrowed a bucket from his friend. It broke, a pail. I came to Rav Papa, Malay, I said, bring proof that you didn't do anything different with it, and you'll be exempt. Why? Because a borrower is exempt if the animal dies while it's working. Do you have a note on Shasikra? Rav kept silent, signaling his acquiescence to their question. I mean, I have to put that note. Although silence in the face of a challenge is not always an indication of agreement, it can also be an indication that the question is not worth taking seriously. See Baba Basra. In this case, the Gemara assumes that Rav was silent because he acceded to the view of the questioner. This is because Rav Kana and Rav both disciples appears to Rav, who would not simply have dismissed their challenge without comment. Of necessity, then his silence must be interpreted as yes. Yeah, it's basically it's not always clear when it says Shasik Rav. Okay, so Rav Papa said over here, in this case, next case, that if the person didn't do anything different with the bucket, then he'd be exempt, even though it broke, and he's a shayel, he's a borrower. Who gathered the shal shuna michaver? Those a person that borrowed a cat from his friend. What is it? Borrowed the cat. So all the mice gathered together and they killed the cat. This only happens on the cartoons. I think this happens in real life. This is mice get together. It's like what is this? The Animal Farm. Like they're gonna get rid of the cat. Okay.
borrows a cat from mice stand together against it, kill it, or the cat dies eating too many mice. Borrow it.
But he doesn't explain how they band together. Okay. Well, let's say they did. Yosef Ravashi sitting by Boile, he asked the question. You see, the borrower here just lost the cat. So does he have to pay for it? Is this considered that it died during work? Or maybe not. He says, so says Avimi Grunya in the name of Rava. This is Rav Mordechai telling Ravashi. A man that's killed by women is not considered a judge or a judgment. Now, what does that mean exactly? It means that it's something that no one would have ever suspected, and therefore it's not considered like any negligence here. So therefore, if it's not any negligence, we consider it Mesimach Mas Malacha, died at work. Ikadamri, there are those that say a little different. Achel Achbri Tuva Kavalo Miss. This is more like it. This is more realistic. The cat ate too many mice, and it overate. It's like a feast of mice, and it died. What's going to be the halacha here? This looks like the same story. Here it says a man that's killed by women. Now this is a little different. This means it's killed by women because it had he had relations too many times and he died. That's what Rashi says. Yeah, I don't know if that's scientific. The doctor will tell us. But overheated. Okay. I thought it, chavel is the translation is overheated. This Chamim Rashi says. Right. Yeah. Yeah. What is how does overheated have to do with eating too much? Okay, whatever the case is the halacha over here seems to be that it's something that he didn't have to suspect that the animal would do, and it's considered meis machmas malach, and it would be exempt. Okay. Amar Rava. Rava says, Haiman de boy lemishal midi michavri belifta. Rava gives you a trick. You want to borrow something from your friend and you don't want to be responsible for it. So namely, you should tell the person that you're borrowing from, Ashkayan Maya da Havishila Babayl. He said, pour me some water. Yeah. You're borrowing the item, and then you tell the owner, while you're at it, give me some water. So he's working for you because he's giving you water. And the halach is, you only need him to be working for you at the time of the borrowing. Be careful, but if the owner is a smart guy, name Malay, you should respond. Shal, do you have Beresha? I have my Gemara says Shal Bedisha, but it can't be. Shal Beresha v'hadashkaya. I just made up a word in the Gemara.
No, mine is Beresha.
Oh, interesting. Shal Bedisha. First borrow. Mine's this what's this called? iPad, Shaspad says Shal Bedisha. Okay, it means the Resha. First borrow, and then I'll give you the water. Oh, there's Shkaya, yeah, a real businessman. It says, first, let's take care of business, and then we'll discuss the waters. Once you sign here. Okay, Amarava. I'm sorry, Reb Naftali, you want to ask something?
I thought Kimura yesterday concluded that there wasn't a logic or a basis for this particular point, that distinguishing between the owner being with you at the time you borrow versus when you're working.
Now we concluded that the main thing is the time of borrowing. It's not necessary for the owner to still be there at the time of work.
I thought it said
we had those two brises and contradictions and
right, right.
and all of them led to that same answer, is that you need to be only at the time of borrowing. So here we're saying he serves him water at the time of borrowing. That covers the
I tried to send it up to something to Yufta to indicate that there was no response.
That Siyuvta meant that we got rid of Rav Hamnuna, that held that he did have to be there the whole time. The opposite. The Siyuvta took away Rav Hamnuna's view.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah. So Amar Rava says, Mikri Dardaki, you have a school teacher. Shasla, a gardener, he plants vineyards or something. Tavcha, a butcher. Umna is a doctor. Safar Masa is the city barber. If you borrow something from them at the time when their store's open, at the time when they're working, so that's considered like Shila B'Bailam, because it's considered that the owner's doing work for you. They're working for the city, for all the people in the city. So they're considered like city laborers. They're considered like they're doing work for every person in the city. If you borrow something from them, they're doing work for you. This would be difficult for a Tzala person. Whenever you borrow something from a Tzala person, it's like Shila B'Bailam. Right? They're always available for you to call them or whatever. Although they tell you, do not call a Tzala if you need band-aids. Sometimes it's very serious things. Amalei Rabbanan LaRava. So Rabbanan say to Rava, this is Rabbanan means Rava's students. Shalom Mar. That means you're borrowed to us. It means you're working for us. You follow? 1 second. See, Rava's the teacher. The teacher is working for the students. He's teaching them. So therefore, if any of the students want to borrow something from the teacher, so it turns out that the student is going to be exempt from anything that happens to the item, because the teacher is the owner of the item, and he's doing work for the borrower at the time of borrowing. So Ikbid Rava got angry about this. Amalahu, he says to them, Lafkuim Mamayna Kabisa, what are you trying to take away my money? Adarabba, on the contrary, Atun Shilton Li, you're working for me. Because I get to choose whatever Masechta we want to learn. So I'm in charge over here, not you. I'm not working for you, you're working for me. But you can't get out of that. I decide that we want to learn Masechta Metzia this year. That's what it is. We decide we're going to learn Masechta Sukkah, then we switch to that. So he's in charge. The Gemara says it's not actually so. The teacher is obligated to the students 30 days before the holiday, or around the time of the holiday, because he's obligated to teach them the halachas of the holiday. However, but the rest of the year, the students are obligated to the teacher because he gets to choose which masechta they're going to learn. Mereimar bar Chanina oger kudenais bechuzoi. Mereimar bar Chanina, he rented a mule. Kudenais is a mule, right? To the people of Chuzai, which is that was the end of the teacher-student thing.
Where the actors.
Yes.
You're working for them.
Yeah. My students borrow pencils from me all the time. I don't know. I seldom get them back. But the pencils have like a little thing on it. But, the mechanical pencils have a little thing. Even if I get it back, that piece is broken off. So when I lend it out again, with the piece broken, I said, I already broke the piece off for you. You don't have to break it up. Okay. So Nafak, really, the way to do this is for them is just to charge them. I say, yeah, I have a pencil, yeah, but it's 25 cents. Just write it down. Just write it down in my book.
25 lines of time.
You could exchange it with Tanya if you don't want to pay. Mishnayos. Okay, so he rented a mule. Nafak lidliye tunabadayu. He goes out to help them load it up while these people are renting a mule. They're gonna put a loan on it. He goes out to help them put it up. To be cordial and to help them do that. They were negligent with the mule, and the mule died. Also, they come to Rava says, okay, they have to pay. They were negligent to chayav. Amalei Rabbanan LeRava, so the students tell Rava, Shia b'bailami. This is probably the same student that they say it's Shia b'bailam. 1 second, when these Beit Chuzai, people of Chuzai borrowed, he went out to help them load it up. At the time of borrowing, he was there assisting them. Rava got embarrassed. Saifik Lai Milsa, the Lameser Tuna, who did not that it wasn't. He didn't go to help them. He wanted to make sure they did it right. How do they translate the words? The Lameser Tuna. Tuna is the load. Meser means to observe. Supervise. Don't worry. Okay. According to the one that says that if someone's negligent and the owner's there, he's exempt. Remember, this was a machlekes. Shia b'bailam spatu was a machlekes. Who was it machlekes between Ravina and Ravaka? Remember this machlekes? Shia b'bailam spatu. It was like a marsav. Yeah, Ravach and Ravina. Apparently, whenever the Gemara says machlekes Ravina, Ravach and Ravina is always lenient. So Ravina would say that he's pater. Ravach would say that he's fine. So Hanich Lamandam Shiva Bailam Pater. What was the Mesar supervise? I'm sorry. So okay, good. So if you so hold that when he's negligent and the owner was there, he's exempt mishamach yichsef. That's why Rava was embarrassed, because that would be a clear mistake. He should have said that he's exempt, not chayiv. One second, but there's an opinion that holds that he's chayiv. According to that opinion, why would Rava have been embarrassed? And it's Ravach and Ravina. These are later Amiroim. Known what Rava Paskin says. Loi mifsha proshaba alagnuve ignev umesa kedarka beganav haba. The story was a little different. It wasn't a negligence. What happened here? What happened was it got stolen, and when it got stolen from these people, and it died by the ganav. Okay, now the Rava came to Rava. Rava says that these people, the Beit Chazai, you have to pay for it. They were the renters, and they have to pay when something gets stolen. Got stolen with when the owner was assisting. Nichsef, Rava got embarrassed about that, which everyone holds that he really should be pater. But really, Rava was right, even though he didn't know why he was right, because they only found out later that he wasn't really helping them; he was just observing and supervising.
Here it sounds like the owner has to do something for the borrower in order for them to get the exception. But
yeah,
yesterday we learned that you just have to be there.
No, he has to be working for them.
But before we added the whole work, it was just that he had to be there.
No, what it means be there means working for them.
Remember the whole
Doesn't we said that it has to be working? It doesn't have to be here. It could be working somewhere else. It could be in front of it. It could be even a different job. But he has to be doing something.
Before that, whether being there at the time of lending or being there like watching the job.
Yeah, we said he doesn't have to be there at the job. He only has to be there at the time of lending. But being there at the time of lending means he's doing work for the borrower at the time. Yeah, that being there means working, doing something, serving him water, painting his house, something. Okay, I guess we'll leave it at the Mishnah.
Started when you just
Yeah, are we doing something? Are we doing